Welcome to Small Talk, where each week we sit down to discuss the sermon-based small group questions at Wallula Christian Church.
Hello, welcome back to Wallula's weekly podcast, Small Talk. My name is Zach Boland, student pastor here at Wallula Christian Church. I'm joined, as always, by Craig Archer, our worship pastor, and Lance Kaufman, lead pastor. We are continuing on in our series in 2 Corinthians, Last Chance Church, and today we're looking at Lance's sermon from this past week, Last Chance to Spread the Word. And before we jump into the small group questions, we are going to start with a fun one. It says, if you were on the television show America's Got Talent, what would your talent be? So it would have to be something, I guess, that would warrant you even being there. So are you good enough at anything to remotely make it past the first round of screeners to get on that stage?
I pictured myself being on that stage. I gave you guys the answer, so I don't have anything new. We talked about it earlier. But I pictured myself on the stage.
You don't want to share with the rest of the...
You told us a staff meeting.
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
But isn't that...
There's like 3 other people listening right now that want the answer, correct?
What is it?
There's dozens out there.
Isn't the goal of the show, or whoever wins, you get like a Vegas
residency
spot or something like that?
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had that in mind in my answer, which makes it hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I said cooking dinner with one hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And holding a child in the other.
Yeah.
I got pretty good at it because Ava wouldn't let me put him down for a long time. And I just thought, man, that'd be so funny if people were sitting there
Right.
and just for a while they just watch me make dinner with one hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's on TV.
Right.
Mhm, that's it.
And that's it. That's just
Right.
all that happens.
Yeah.
And eventually I'm just like, all right, I'm done.
There's nothing that there's nothing you can think of that you're good enough at where it's like, this could be slightly impressive.
Yes. Because I
Besides
feel
that.
like a lot of the times, it has that big wow moment.
Right.
So I don't know what that would be
Yeah.
for me. So
Well, it would have possibilities of like a second entertainment career. You could hit, the circuses. Like one overdeveloped arm.
That's right.
Really strong left arm.
Especially as
man
Ava
or
gets
something.
bigger.
Yeah.
Take this show on the road while you can,
right.
because he's going to...
Yeah.
It's like when I held up Graham. I could do that up until he's
That's
about
right.
13, and then
yeah.
now I for sure can't.
Have you stopped trying?
Yeah, when he turned 14, at 13... For those that don't know, when my son turned every year for his birthday, I would hold him up. My dad used to do that to us when we were kids. So when he was a baby, I was like, look at me, I'm like my dad. And then every year I just kept doing it. I was like, I can still do this. And it got harder and harder. But when up till he's 12, I was still able to do it. And at 13, I got it most of the way up with one hand. And then he came crashing down on me. And then I just, this year I'm not like, oh, I've been working out, I'm going to try again. No, and I think appropriately, he's not having it.
Right.
Right.
At 14, he's like, no,
Don't hold me there.
Yeah, I don't.
There must have been some resistance even before that. He must have said, Dad.
Actually, he was okay with it. Toward the middle, he was 6 and 7, but it was more because he was scared.
Oh,
Like when he was younger, he didn't really know. And then there's like around 5 or 6, he's like, this is way high. And I'm like, just do it. And then, so I bribed him. And then after that, he thought it was kind of fun again. And see if Dad could do it.
Right.
And then he realized he was getting big, and he was like, didn't think I could.
Keep
so then
going.
it was almost like he was wanting me to fail. So he'd let me try. So yeah, anyway, I put, if I was on America's Got Talent, I was thinking the idea of being on stage in front of thousands of people and then just hearing the putting the button down, like the X, and like, oh. So there's nothing I could think of that would even think that I could convince one judge. So the only thing I thought of was the one time I was in a talent show in high school, and it would probably have to be this route where it's something so stupid that maybe I could get by. I don't know how I'd make a Vegas residency out of it, but so apologies for what I'm about to say because it's not pleasant, but it did get a big response in high school. We did this one skit where it was me and 4 other people, and the first person comes out and there's a stool out front in front of the stage for the whole high school with a cup of water and toothpaste and a toothbrush, and the first person comes out and then brushes their teeth to silence. and then they just get the water, and then they gargle, and then they spit it back in the cup and set it down, and then they walk off. And the second person comes out and picks up the same toothbrush, puts toothpaste on, and brushes their teeth. By this time, everyone's groaning, and then they pick up that nasty water and then gargle and do it, and they do it 3 times, and then I'm the 4th person to come out. And by this time, they're not having it. They are done with all of this. And so then I come out as the closer, brush my teeth again, and they're just groaning. They're like, this is the grossest, dumbest thing. And then I brush my teeth, and then I gargle, spit, and I just hold it for a second, and I just stare at everyone, and I bring it back up to my mouth. And I heard someone in the audience be like, no! And I just proceed to down it, drink the whole thing of water, of minty used water.
Yeah.
And by that time, it was a combination of like the reaction was like from some people just like standing up and clapping and yelling, like cheering, and some people like I don't know if it was booing, but it was like for sure like whatever that noise was, like
groaning.
Groaning and all that stuff. And it was just, but it definitely got a reaction. And so I don't know how to make a Vegas residency out of gross skits that I had.
You could do that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's not a talent, but it's something that no one else does. So
I'm just thinking
it was definitely memorable.
You want friends with healthy gums.
Yeah. Sure.
Like you don't want any
as a 17-year-old
bleeding
it
gums.
Was just as a 17-year-old, I was just like, oh, this is going to be so funny. Like, you're not thinking anything. You're just...
got some guy. I mean...
With the hint of gingivitis in there.
Yeah, it's bad enough. You get the leftover corn kernels. But,
yeah.
But you can... It's real diseases you're passing along then.
I remember for the talent show, I guess this was my senior year, so I was 17 or 18, but they had, all the acts had to come in early to rehearse.
Sure.
And when we told them what was going to be going on, they are like, okay, never mind. You can just, don't worry about that. And so they did.
Well, I was going to ask if there was some sort of screening process.
No, it turns out, it was my junior year. I remember because John Bowling, who was in our youth group, had seen it done before. It was a church camp thing, by the way. That's where I had learned it from.
That sounds about right.
From, I think, a camp team, something. And so we thought it was so funny. So all these high schoolers are now going to do it. And so he knew what we were doing, and he was the MC and kind of knew the drama teacher. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, they don't need to come in here. So we kind of had his backing and instead of trying to convince teachers.
You snuck it in, is what you're saying.
Well, they knew, but it was also they hadn't seen it. So I don't know if any rules were passed after that of like what you can't do. Obviously, pre-COVID skits that would seem odd now. I mean, it seemed odd then, but
just terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we were back in the day. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
good one.
It definitely was one of those things. Like you watch America's Got Talent, sometimes there's something that's so bad it's memorable. So I'm like, I would just have to go all in for something that was terrible instead of.
You need 3 other people to do it with you. And
with good gums.
Yeah. Healthy gums. And then you get picked up. You just imagine doing that.
They're like, what are you going to do next week or next
time? Once a night, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
You know, like 3 times on Saturday. That's
the whole thing takes.
You got the matinee.
4 minutes. Yeah, the whole thing takes 4 minutes.
You're selling tickets.
I have to build a whole show around this. Of
people coming in.
Gross things that Zach does.
Like here.
Yeah.
Make sure you tip your waitress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would hope they would just say nope.
Order the chicken fingers.
Don't make me come back.
Watch us
I don't
brush
have
our
to
teeth.
come up with something else.
Just terrible.
Yep. Anyway,
that's awesome.
I would have to do. Yeah. So that's what I would do is something that was that stood out that I could do once and be like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a talent for a talent show. Really, I was thinking. You guys ever seen that movie, The Goonies?
Of course.
I think it's The Goonies. And there's the chubby kid.
Yeah, Chunk.
And Chunk was his name, and he does like the truffle shuffle. I could probably do that.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could be a part of your show, probably.
We just do all of these at the
Opening
same
act.
time.
Yeah. We hit the road.
What's
one
the
guy
theme going on here? It's like whatever we could find.
making hamburger helper with
Craig's walking around with a kid.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, this is a sad bunch we have going on here.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we found something we are good at.
It gets pretty good because if you're opening a can, you've got like, I got I have to put in tomato sauce now. That's
Yeah.
pretty challenging, actually. With David, hold this with your teeth, and I'll open this. And
He becomes my assistant.
Dude, this is.
it's pretty good stuff.
I just keep imagining all three of those things happening on stage at once.
Well,
All right. Well,
maybe we'll have a talent show at Wallula next year.
Maybe.
We can not do those things.
yeah, I'm sure anyone else sitting here could have been like, "Oh, I'm really good at this,"
Yeah.
but the three of us are like, "Nah, we got nothing.
Yeah.
We're not even kind of good."
I mean, Craig has real talent.
Yeah, he
could have
could've played something.
Yeah, he could have played the
You could-
world's
you could play
biggest
something on the
drum
drums
set or
and- yeah.
something. Yes.
you
Yeah.
actually have a skill.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
What's
guys
that-
are right. I
what's
am
that thing
very
you get paid
talented.
for?
I am very
Oh,
talented.
I do play
Yeah,
an
you play
instrument every
multiple
week.
instruments. Yeah. All right. Well, we've locked that one down. So we'll move on. We are looking at questions 4 and 7 today from the small group questions. And from 2 Corinthians chapter 2, the question is, what are some keys to sharing God's truth and love? And what makes these kinds of conversations so difficult, and are they worth it? So we have Paul addressing the church in Corinth and having to say some things that is not easy to say. So how do we do that practically when we're looking at our own lives, when we have to have those conversations? What's some practical wisdom for speaking the truth in love?
Well, one thing, kind of the one thing I was thinking about with this answer is a key, but it also is something that can add to the difficulty, I guess. And, Paul, he's writing a letter to people that he has an existing relationship with. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing that I was thinking about as I was going over this question, is like, man, when you have to have a conversation, like it says here, that's difficult, speaking the truth in love, maybe that means like pointing out something uncomfortable, and people don't always love to hear the truth, depending on what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But man, if you have a relationship with that person, that means that there's years of trust built up. A couple weeks ago we talked about living a life that like people can look at it and know your intentions and what you're living for. Mm-hmm. And so if there's years of living life with this person, that they know your intentions and where your heart is, and just building up years of trust helps someone to hopefully be able to hear something difficult from you, or maybe you receive that. And I think that's part of what makes it difficult too, is like you're also someone that you love and care about and want the best for them. Just at the same time, it's like, man, you got to figure out how to navigate that to maintain the relationship and make it grow and stay healthy. Since we're in 2 Corinthians, reading one of Paul's letters, I thought about in his letter to the Galatians, where he talks about confronting Peter on an issue, where Peter was sitting down to eat a meal with people outside of the Jewish circle, and then when his Jewish friends show up, he backs off. And then Paul, you think about that situation, and we don't know all the details of what that looked like and everything, but it's like that would have been a difficult conversation to have, pointing out like, hey man, if we're truly in this and like wanting to spread the gospel and be disciples of Jesus, like, hey, what you just did, that doesn't look quite like what it is. I think when we have those conversations, it's for the better. Like the last question, like, is it worth it? I think about that instance in scripture, or like things I've seen in my life, and it's like, it is worth it. But like, man, it can be very difficult. And so, I kept centering around the thought of like, you got to have a relationship built up.
I think I've heard like relational equity, something that you've poured into over and over, so you have the.
I just thought like, the times that people try to say those types of things, say on social media, it's like, that's a really easy example of like,
when you don't have
don't have anything established,
right?
And so how do you expect any sort of fruit to come from this, any sort of positive outcome or change? Like that's just kind of like a blaring example of the opposite of what we're talking about.
Yeah, when it's like your friend posted it, but then someone you don't know
Yeah.
that's friends with them post, and it's like these two strangers are
Right.
having this back
Yeah.
and forth.
You have to earn the right to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I should, that's one of the things I had as well. I kept thinking back to in John 1 where it says that Jesus, when he came to this earth, he was full of grace and truth, and balancing those two, and how he did those perfectly. He was full of both grace and truth, and our natural tendency is like we want to be like Jesus, full of both, but we're more comfortable with one or the other. And some people are more on the truth and the justice and the black and white, and some are more comfortable with the grace and the love and the forgiveness, and we have to sort of fight against both to try to be balanced. But with this one, we have the sharing God's truth but in love, so we see this also wrapped up in both of those. The first thing I thought of was just check your heart. So why are you wanting to say the truth to this person? What's your motive for doing this? And in 2 Corinthians 2:4, Paul he mentioned how he was greatly distressed and he had anguish of heart with many tears. So he wasn't doing this out of pride. He wasn't doing this out of trying to prove them wrong or be right or anything else, but he did it from a place of love, like where he was coming for. So that was the first thing I thought of, some of the keys to doing it, like what's your motive behind wanting to tell someone they're wrong or they've been sinning or whatever else.
Yeah.
The second one is to let them know your intent, like why you're saying this, and basically to your heart behind it. He talked about the depth of his love, and so letting someone sometimes, and I'm this way too. If someone's going to correct me, if all I hear is the correction, it can come across as you're just pounding it, you're compiling it, and so bringing it around. I think they call it the sandwich method or whatever else, but letting them know like, hey. Still love you, and the reason I love you so much is that's why I'm telling you this, not because I'm trying to just come down hard on you.
Yeah.
And then the last one, like you said, was just to, I said like match the firmness with your relational, how close you are in a relationship. And so, like you said, the relational equity, all that kind of stuff. Paul knew the Corinthians, and so he could speak truth to them. And so I have to think about that. Actually, two ways I have to think about it. One is on one side, the Facebook analogy of like, hey, there's a lot of people who are saying stuff that I may disagree with, but I'm not going to go chase that down. I don't know these people. It wouldn't be appropriate. On the flip side, there's a lot of people I do know that I have that relational equity with, that I am the one who probably should, or one of the people in their lives that probably could and needs to step up. I'd say I probably err more on the side of not speaking truth when I should versus spouting off whatever I think all the time. And so, but yeah, like the harder the truth, the closer your relationship needs to be before you talk to them. So, yeah.
Yeah, all good stuff. And I think you guys are right. And you mentioned the, establishing a relationship with folks and speaking the truth in those relationships. And Zach, you talked about that sandwich method or whatever. And I think the key, even that idea, you say something positive.
I didn't say what that was.
Then you offer the correction and you say something positive again. But the key to even that sandwich method, right, is that you're in for the long haul. In other words, when we think about speaking the truth in love, and this question even has that kind of bias built into it, that we tend to think of having really hard conversations, correcting sin, and I think rightfully so. That's the idea in this passage a little bit, and that's that's what Paul's up to here with his correspondence with the Corinthians. But there's the truth isn't always correcting something negative. Sometimes it's commending somebody for the good that they do. And so to have that, in other words, if you're living out that sandwich method, right, where you make sure that you're speaking the truth about really great stuff that person is up to, and then sometimes the harder things are heard a little better along the way too. So, thinking about keys to having those conversations, though, especially when they're hard conversations. I looked at a passage in another one of Paul's letters in 2 Timothy, where he says in chapter 4, verse 2, he says, "Reprove, rebuke, and exhort with complete patience and teaching." And if you're not careful, you can kind of hear those first three words, reprove, rebuke, and exhort, almost like rebuke. And they're similar words, but they have slightly different meaning. And that first idea of reprove, it's almost like just what it sounds, right? It has to do an element of truth telling, and so you just want to be honest and all of those things, and we have a tendency to either, when we're confronted with sin, we either sort of underestimate or tone down what the actual sin is. We kind of downplay it, not that big a deal. Or if it's somebody else's sin, then maybe we're more likely to sort of make a bigger deal of it than it is, and we just want to be honest with that. And I think that's the first thing, is just to take, Jesus talks about removing the log out of your own eye. We've got to be honest with ourselves and with our own sin and approach to those kinds of circumstances. And in other words, you guys have used the example of social media. It's really hard if you're, really out there on social media criticizing, everything you come in contact with, and then you tell your buddy, you got to tone it down a little bit. You can't. Well, you better be honest with yourself first, and certainly to be honest with other people. So that's the idea of reproof. Rebuke is Paul only uses that word a couple of times. It's used about 30 times in the New Testament, almost always in the Gospels. And when that word is used in the Gospels, it's almost always Jesus doing the rebuking, right? And so he rebukes the wind, and he rebukes demons, and so that's that word has the idea of putting a stop, putting an end to things. And so when we have these conversations, a key is to call people to repentance, is to help them change direction, to make sure we're encouraging them to move in the opposite direction, to stop what they're doing. That's really the kind of important part of that conversation. And then finally, exhort is, the idea with that word is usually a word of encouragement. And so, and I think, like I mentioned earlier, these conversations about truth don't always have to be about something negative. We need to encourage people along the way, and we just need to encourage people even in the midst of their struggle. Right. And maybe it's a word of encouragement because we've been there before, and I experienced this, I went through this is how I was able to overcome it or change, or this is what I'm still struggling with, or these are the places where we can find more help, or but that word of encouragement goes a long way too. So
yeah. And as we move forward, we're looking at question number 7. I said Paul seems to indicate a connection between obedience and forgiveness. So how would you describe this connection as we move on from verses 5 through 11? So what does it mean to, as we're still showing truth and love? So we spoke in our truth, and so now connecting that, being obedient to God, to now forgiving someone or offering forgiveness. How do you connect those two?
Yeah, I just got done reading a book by A.W. Tozer on obedience, and I don't know if you've ever read Tozer before. Yeah, this is only, I think, the second book I've read from him, but he can be pretty like point blank in the things that he says. He's not trying to like sugarcoat stuff. So there's a lot of statements in there where I was just kind of like, oh wow, you're just gonna come out and say it like that, all right. And right towards the beginning of the book, like the first chapter is kind of like framing it of like, as being created in God's image, he expected his creation to be obedient. That's like part of how we're made. And then he goes on in the next chapter, like right at the beginning, he's like, the church is not good at being obedient. Just like gonna set that up right there. It's like, and then he kind of goes through this little exercise of like, what would it look like if the church were very serious about obedience and like the things that we're called to do. Like imagine what that would look like. And forgiveness is one of those things. And so it's funny that this question, I read that over the weekend. So I've been thinking about that, and it's such a high calling, because he points this out, obedience looks a lot different than the world that we're surrounded by, because the world is not quick to forgive. Instead, we want to prove that we're right, or we want justice to be made in a certain way that might not be the good or the right way. And so the church, being who she is, and like our mission and the how Jesus, like if we look at his teachings, it's like, how often should we forgive? And it's just like over and over. And as sinful people, like we really have to like slow down sometimes. And instead of being quick to have the answers or argue our way out of something, like, okay, where's forgiveness in this if I want to be obedient to Christ? And I think a great exercise and something that I've done over and over is think about how much I've been forgiven through Jesus. And it's like, all right, so if that's true, how should I, as a follower of Christ, as a disciple, wanting to, like, that's what we want, is to look more like Jesus every day. And so, so taking this act of forgiveness seriously and being obedient to it, it's like, man, that sometimes takes a lot of work, but that's essential to being part of the body of Christ, to being a follower of Jesus, and then the ripple effect off of that is like, man, we can't even imagine like what that would look like, kind of what he was talking about in the book. Like, just think about that for a second. Hey, if we actually were serious about forgiveness, and like what that has done in our life and what that would look like just like down the road, even like generations, like, man. So that's what I've been thinking about.
Just every moment you're taking a breath is a reminder that you're forgiven, right? Because as people who have sinned against God, we deserve death. It's you talk about the church isn't good at God created us, his creation. He expects obedience. Church isn't good at obedience, and I just thought, well, that's the beginning of the book. That's how we got here. That we haven't been good at it.
I just got done reading Judges.
Holy cow. You're not good at it. Right? God's people always, and but God forgives us over and over and over again. I'll sometimes hear people, that one of the problems people will have with that creation story and sin entering the world, and people will argue about things like what physical death, is that really a punishment of sin? And well, it can't be it can't be physical death. It must be spiritual death because Adam didn't die, right? Adam and Eve didn't die, and I just always think, well, how is that not characteristic of God and his relationship with us, that he delays that consequence, right? That he makes a way for Adam to keep living, and for each one of us to keep living. Just every one of us should be Ananias and Sapphira, right? Just drug out of the church dead.
Yeah.
And he forgives us, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about the obedience and the previous question, sharing God's truth and love, and we work our way up to being, and some people are very comfortable with it and have no problem, calling out that in truth, like, hey, here's what's going on. And so the obedience of speaking out and maybe calling out calling out sin, or having the awkward conversation that's uncomfortable. And we finally get to that point thinking, I think a lot of Christians think, well, I've done it. I'm done. I've called it out. Now it's up to them. But then after we're obedient in speaking that truth, then the next part is the forgiveness that we're supposed to offer. And so it doesn't just stop. So if you're good at doing that, if you're have had those hard conversations and want to stand up for what is right and true, that's great. But it doesn't stop there. Forgiveness is also obeying God. To stop at just calling out the truth is not the obedience part. You have to finish it off with obeying. And so in verse 7, he talks about how they were supposed to forgive and comfort the person. And then, once the person's repented, Paul says to forgive and comfort them. And anyway, to not do this would be disobeying God. And so we see this obedience, this obedience comes with speaking the truth, but then also forgiving. And so, Craig, you mentioned it already, but I thought of the same thing in Matthew 18, how many times should we forgive? And, 70 times 7. But I'm also reminded, and Craig took my answer as well, in John 13:34, where Jesus says, as I have loved you, so you must love one another. And I think kind of what you're saying, okay, so how has Jesus loved me? Oh, well, he's forgiven me. Because of him, I have life. And also I'm going to keep sinning, and those are forgiven as well. And so knowing that not only did my sin put him on the cross, but also I'm going to, even after accepting his forgiveness, being saved, I still will sin. And even knowing that, he still chooses to forgive and offer that forgiveness to me. So I tell the students all the time when they think, well, how could God, whatever, or if they're hurt so much and they're like, I don't know how I could forgive. And I press back a little bit, saying the truth, which is, whenever I think that, I'm like, who do I think I am?
Right.
Like, how dare me? How dare us say, well, I know God forgave me, and I know I'm going to sin against him, and he's going to forgive me again, and I'm going to gladly accept all of it up until I die. But, they really hurt my feelings, and so I'm going to withhold it. And it's like, what? Who do you think you are? I don't deserve any of this. And so it really helps me to come to a place of being able to forgive. Is not that I do it reluctantly, like a parent who's made their kid say tell your sibling you're sorry.
Right.
But when I just take a step back and realize I'm a sinner, I don't deserve this, and I've been freely given it over and over, it makes it easy to be the one also offering forgiveness, because that's the example, and I'm literally commanded to. I'm commanded to do this by Jesus. And so being obedient to Jesus means forgiving just like he did. And he gave us the example, and he commanded it. So they just go hand in hand in how we're supposed to live our lives.
God's the only one with the right to withhold forgiveness.
Yeah.
And because just from a worldly perspective, every one of us has wronged somebody. Whether we have sliding scales, and we like to compare and contrast and say this wrong is bigger than my wrong, but we're all guilty at some point. And so we've all required forgiveness and probably received forgiveness, not only from Jesus, but from others. And so, yeah, you're right. There's no, we don't have a leg to stand on to say that, I can withhold this forgiveness from somebody else. Sort of no matter how big we don't need to dive into all the different, there's some really big hurts in the world and all of that. And, but God has forgiven us. And
I think it's also important to say sorry, even as we're kind of like skirting with, there's some really big hurts. It is also appropriate to, as we offer forgiveness, to still have boundaries. To not just forgive and say, okay, now I'm back in this relationship again. So for some people who've been through real hurt, You know what I mean?
You don't have to go back for more, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
just in case, I don't know if we're going to get to that, but as you kind of tiptoed around that, like
right.
there's some big hurts. Hear what we're not saying, which is go back to an abusive relationship or whatever. You know, like make sure there's a healthy boundary.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No, and not even that there shouldn't be consequences for the person guilty.
Right.
Right. Well, God promises that too. And so, yeah, I just think, what's the connection? Well, the connection is easy. It's a straight line. I mean, there's no trick here between forgiveness and obedience. That Jesus commands us to forgive others, and to extend that same grace that He's extended to us, or at least in the same way. And so, yeah, you guys nailed it, and I don't think we need to say anything else.
All right. Very cool. All right. Well, glad that you guys are with us. We should be back on this Sunday for those who came to our one service because of the snow. We had a great time, and hopefully, if you missed our service, you were able to catch it online.
Best service of the year.
Best service of the year. Yeah. But we should be on. I don't think there's any snow coming next Tuesday, so we'll be meeting again next week. So we look forward to seeing you then.
Yep.